the tape. That would have been nice.
Who knew?
Could you actually just say all of that again?
What did I say?
Slower.
Here, and you
Go
just
slower.
recorded it and then replayed it.
I heard blah 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 tax.
That's how that usually comes out. Well, tax, money, tax.
I've heard that about 5 times, and it's still.
For you guys.
All right, we're live. Took me a few years.
You explain it well.
Keep saying, keep preaching.
They're just complaining about it, but now they love it. Because
Good.
it just keeps
6 p.m. Call this regular village board meeting to order. If you'd all join me in a moment of silence. In the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, you have a roll.
Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Fountain.
Here.
Trustee Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Mao.
Here.
Trustee Scherschel.
Present.
Village President Kimsey.
Present. Any public announcements? This.
Ho, 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 Mary.
Do you have coal in there for us?
I do have gifts for you if I can take a minute or two to quickly.
Told you he was real.
It's not every day Santa makes it to your meeting.
Anyone this year. You do have New Testaments for each one.
Thank
of
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Claus.
Thank you.
Better get Scherschel too. Yeah.
I did, sir.
Thank you, Santa.
Thank you.
This could be trouble.
That's cool.
Take a step back from Paul.
Everybody's doing good. Keep it up.
All right.
Thank you.
Tell the elves we said hi.
Let the record reflect that Santa says we're all on the nice list. At this point,
Year's not over.
with 2 weeks to go, you're
do we
trending
vote?
well.
Did we vote on that?
Oh, that's a proclamation, if ever there was.
An affirmation resolution, perhaps?
No additional public announcements. Public comments regarding agenda topics. And I don't recognize you guys as being here so real quickly what we do. If you have public comments regarding something specifically on our agenda, we do those at the front end of the meetings. For other items, we do them at the back of the end. So, Ms. Billick.
Oh, crap. Just pass me up.
Okay, next on the list is Ms. Billick.
Don't go on the down for joy, buddy.
See Santa Claus.
All right.
We need you at every meeting. We need you.
But that's your gift, buddy.
I'll
at every meeting.
All right, hearing no public comment, can I have a motion to put the consent agenda on the
I'll
table?
make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion, second by Trustee Fountain. Comments or discussion regarding the minutes or the warrants? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
No old business. Item 1 under new business. Can I have a motion to bring to the table an ordinance levying taxes for all corporate purposes for the Village of Chatham, Sangamon County, Illinois, for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of May 2018, ending the 30th day of April 2019.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Trustee Detmers. Discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
Item 2, can I have a motion to bring to the table a resolution abating the direct annual real estate tax in the amount of $348,236 for the year 2018 levied pursuant to Ordinance 14-04.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Fountain's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. To answer your question, Bonnie,
Thank you.
every year as part of our total levy, we have a bond requirement on the electric infrastructure that's in the village. It's backed primarily with the revenue that comes from the electric department. Secondary is backed on the real estate taxes. You levy for the real estate taxes up front. The moment that you've determined that you have substantial revenue from the operations of the electric department, you abate that levy so that it never gets collected. That's what this portion does.
And most of that bond for the electric was the independent substation. So when that got put in years ago, we had to bond that amount to be able to pay for that.
Are you behind on the bond?
No.
No, and not behind on the bonds, otherwise the levy wouldn't be abated.
Yeah.
Only because the way it seemed like outstanding prior bonds.
It is, and it's a long-term bond, and it's the same as if you said, you know, I have an outstanding mortgage on my house. Until it's all paid off, it's outstanding. So nothing late, nothing past due, and there's substantial revenue in the electric department to cover that. So, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Item 3, can I have a motion to bring an ordinance lowering the letter of credit amount for the Highlands subdivision first edition?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Of a second.
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Fountain. Discussion, questions regarding this. You saw the engineer's letter in there that they've, endorsed lowering this based on the improvements that have been made. So, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Item 4, can I have a motion to bring to the table an ordinance setting village board meeting dates for calendar year 2019?
So moved.
Trustee Churchill's made a motion. Of a second.
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Detmer. Same schedule as prior year with the exception of the Christmas Eve meeting?
I think,
Moved to a Monday before he.
It was moved to a Monday.
was it Monday? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year it's, Wednesday, right?
Yeah, this year we go after because it's Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So. Madam Clerk?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Now public comments regarding regular village meetings. Bonnie?
Crap, I got to come up here.
Here. Do you need another one?
No, fine. Don't pick on me now. Don't start my 5 minutes yet. Not picking on me. I think the only comment that I have is
Make sure you speak in a mic.
I actually went to the utility commission meeting last night, and I want to thank the members that are there for that. You too, Paul. And what you said was good, minimal but good. It was an eye-opening experience. It's one that you might see me more at, fair warning. But it was you were able to speak and say what you needed to say, okay? And they're supposed to be coming back to the rest of you and telling you what the agenda was about and what our concerns were about. I think my concern is the water's still an issue for a lot of people. I openly admitted that with us using city water, light, and power water at this time, I was concerned about the two differentials, chloramine and the chloride and stuff like this. I do not smell as much chlorine in my kitchen. I openly admitted the dog doesn't run when I give him the bowl of water because I cannot afford to keep going buying water. The only concern I had was it was stated that the village of Chatham sent employees to the SSWC to repair a pole. I have an issue with that. I can't imagine how we would go and repair an Ameren pole.
It's not an Ameren pole.
Okay. Ameren pole or not?
Ameren Electricity.
Ameren Electricity comes into the site, but the poles in the well field are owned by the South Sangamon Water Commission.
Okay. So then we go back to where I said that I would stop talking so much about the water and leave that up to other people because you guys are sort of sick and tired of hearing about it. So then I would go on to the warrants. The warrants are payouts. I understand that. When I look at those warrants, it's what you guys pay out that are bills coming in. A $620 magazine I have a problem with tonight, but you know, we'll move on to something bigger. When I see those warrants and I see everything that's paid out, things that are there that should be reimbursed to the village of Chatham, where as a citizen do I follow up or get nosy, whatever way you want to put it? How do I know that we've been reimbursed? Where do those funds go when they're reimbursed? I want to be able to see that on the website so that when I come in here and I talk about the warrants, then I'm knowledgeable of going, oh, okay, we did get reimbursed from SSWC for repairing that pole that's out there. Also with that meeting last night, I don't think we were 150% clear, and it was probably me going home having a beer or two thinking, God, did I get all the answers I needed? And I don't think I did, but that's why you will see me at these next meetings, because I'm going to get a little more notes in there, and I'll be sitting up front as usual. But citizens had contacted me and said, when did City Water, Light and Power's water actually get turned on? Whether it's affecting me on Chestnut or not, they don't care. They want to know when it was turned on, how long it's been turned on. Was SSWC ever down with that pole and electric out there, the Ameren Electric out there, and us repairing the pole? Were they ever down out there? It's still a concern, but I'm going to look at the aspect of people have contacted me that asked me to ask you guys to come up with these answers, whether you do it on the website or not. I don't care how you do it, but they are asking. Because you all know that not everybody wants to come in here and speak up like I do. But again, thank you to you gentlemen that were there last night at the meeting. I really appreciate it. I felt like I was heard. Now I'm going to step back and see if anything was done about what I had suggested or what I commented on. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Ms. Miller. Ms. Law?
I live in a house that's not even 2 years old yet. Get in the shower, blue crystals come out in your hair, all over your body. You go, what in the heck? Then your washing machine codes, it's stopped up. So then you call a repairman, call a plumber. So long story short, it's all to do with the rod and the water heater that we knew nothing about. It's cost us quite a chunk of money this month. Another repair bill on our dishwasher, flooded our hardwood because of the water that was backed up due to Chatham's water. So we've had a repair on our dishwasher. It's not even 2 years old. Washing machine. Had a plumber that had to fix our spare bathroom. We had no water coming out of our faucet because it was so backed up with blue crystals. Pat did listen to me today. He knows I'm angry, extremely angry. My husband come down to the village with a bag full of crystals. Pat right away said, it's the rod in your water heater. Okay. I'm like, and I said to Pat today, I said, where is it that the citizens of Chatham can prevent this happening so they don't have to put out over $1,000 to get stuff fixed and replaced in a house that's not even 2 years old? The plumber couldn't repair one of the faucets. It had to be totally done. New shower heads. You can see why I'm extremely angry. Pat was a good listener. I told him there needed to be something out on the website explaining about the rods. That was taken care of today. Thank you, Pat. He was very good about listening. He's a very nice gentleman. But I told him I'd probably be here because I'm extremely angry. Other people need to know about this. Something needs to be done to alert the public that they need to change out the rods in their water heater, regardless of whether it's electric or gas.
All right, thank you, Ms. Law.
And if they go to the village webpage and click on water, under resources, if you go to water resources, the very top item on that is that page that tells you what type of rods need to go with what types of hot water heaters and stuff like that. So
That doesn't help us being out over $1,000, and then we had to have our water heaters to get the crystals out. They still don't know if we're going to save our water heater or not. But now, next month, I'm going to have a huge water bill because they have to flush out and remove all the water. Until then, it had to fill back up. So now we're going to have that huge expense next month. I think it's all unfair. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Any additional comments this evening? Hearing none, schedule of meetings. Committee of the Whole meets 6:15 following this meeting. ADA Transition Plan Committee, 6 p.m. on December 18th. Planning Commission, 6 p.m. December 20th. Pat, you still have business? Or
nothing right yet.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Village Board, 6 p.m. This is December 26th. That's the schedule change. It's a Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on Wednesday.
It's Wednesday instead. I mean, you can come Tuesday, but I'm going to be with my family on Christmas Day. Village Board, 6 p.m., January 8th, 2019. Public Properties Recreation Commission meeting, 6 p.m., January 14th of 19. Chatham Police Commission, 5:30, January 23rd of 19. And the Utility Oversight Subcommittee, 6 p.m., February 11th, 2019. Having no further business, moving for closed session, I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Fountain, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting stands adjourned. 6:15, you're up.
6:15, okay, take roll call to order.
Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Fountain.
Here.
Trustee Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Mal.
Here.
Trustee Churchill.
Present. Public comments on agenda topics. Did anybody sign in?
Got nothing additional on this
Nothing?
list.
Okay. Old business, or actually consent agenda, can I have a motion to bring the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Mann, seconded by Trustee Churchill. Any discussion? Do I have a motion
I'll
to adopt the consent agenda?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mal.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes. Old business having none. New business, CMT engineering updates.
We'll start off a little bit with some old business. Last meeting, Trustee Fountain had asked to take a look at, take a look at some pavement rehabilitation associated with slurry coat technologies for some of the roadways that are in okay type condition, but to bring them up to a better condition. That goes back to the whole pavement rating system in which we talked about before, where you have a 1 to 10 rating system, and if you sink all your money into fixing the ones that are rated at 1, you'll be able to fix about 2% of the roadways in town and be broke. Whereas if you put money towards items that are 4s, 5s, and 6s to bring those back to 8s, you're going to get a much bigger bang for your buck in terms of preserving those pavements. So it's more about pavement preservation, looking at the entire life cycle. So one of the things that Trustee Fountain asked us to do was to look at pavements that were in that 4 to 6 range and that had the type of distress or deterioration that could be fixed with more of a slurry seal coat type application. Trustee Fountain attended a industry meeting in which some options were presented in terms of newer technologies that are out there that will help address some of these issues and maybe a little bit more robust than maybe the standard IDOT type procedures or technologies that are just in the regular standard specifications book that will help provide some more longevity. So what I've given you today is Trustee Fountain's original email, and looking at, like I said, the pavements that are rated from a 4 to 6, and ones that a slurry treatment would be appropriate for rehabilitation. Now,
Is this what we have on Gordon? That's
Gordon's different. Gordon is oil and chip.
Okay.
This would be more applied as a slurry rather than applying rock, then applying a bituminous coating, then applying rock, then a bituminous coating.
Okay.
This would all go down as one product in a slurry mix.
Okay.
So it has a better sealing property. It has a more flexible consistency to it. It's almost kind of almost like a rubber membrane that kind of goes over the pavement and seals that off. With water being the biggest, I guess, detriment to pavement. More water get in there, it's susceptible to freeze thaw, cracks up the pavement, gets down to the base, softens up the base, so forth and so on.
So is this, I mean, from looking at it, and I'll admit I know nothing about what this is besides reading it, but it almost sounds like that those buckets of stuff you put on your asphalt driveway every 2 or 3 years and squeegee it around.
Similar, it's more of a seal coat and a wear coat, so it has aggregate in there.
but it's a higher quality material that has a little bit more thickness to it. It's not just a real thin paint, I guess, if you will. It's not intended to be a yearly process. It's intended to last for a 10-year period. So it does have some thickness. It provides some skid resistance and surface friction surface to it because there is an aggregate mixed into it. So
what's the thickness about? 1/4 inch?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Pat, I was going to ask you, is that surface still in front of your house as far as that 10+ years ago, or has that since been?
No, that's still that same surface.
Okay.
That
and it was a slightly different product. I think it was a
it was a
Ryumac.
real thin product, but they put some kind of fiber mat down first and then painted on top of it. And it still has cracking in it, but no alligatoring at all. So no pieces coming up, but it'll still, as the earth moves and stuff and you're locked in by curbs and gutters, that asphalt has to do something because it heats up and cools down. It'll crack, but we have no deterioration, and that has been for, at least 10 to 15 years, at least.
So we're looking at products that will help extend the longevity of pavements that are kind of getting into that marginal range where if we don't do anything with it, they will become the 1s and 2s and require as opposed to, we're treating it with a lower dollar solution as opposed to waiting until it fails completely because, if we wait until then, once again, you'll never have much. Everything is cycling down, going from 10s to 9s to 8s to 7s. And if you wait long enough, everything will be just reduced to crap.
How long is this rated to last compared to what we typically use?
Well, that's put on a proper pavement, proper application. We're looking at something easier. I'm not going to say Band-Aid, but surface course that will seal up that pavement and preserve it. New pavements are rated at 20 years. So it's applying it to pavements that are generally in good shape, no rutting, no deflections, but the surface is starting to wear. We're starting to see cracks in the pavement. Water can start getting in there, start deteriorating, and going forward. So it's looking at those type of applications.
Does it flow into cracks?
It does.
So that when everything is done, do you see where the cracks were, or does it fill it enough
everything
that?
will fill because it's got the aggregate in there as well.
Nice.
So.
But I think that also depends on the size of your crack.
Yeah, so if you're. Can we say that?
You already did. Can't pull that one back. You already did.
Can't rewind the tape.
What do you say?
Yeah. Age 37.
Yes, there may be some sort of pre-treatment to deal with certain roadways depending on what the applications are. But what I have there is, we applied a cost associated with that of about $3 a square yard, which is similar to the cost that Trustee Fountain had received at his seminar for this type of application. There may be a little bit more associated with that based on pre-treatment or preparation in advance of this product. But what we have there is a list of the roadways within the village that qualify under that rating and type of application. So, one thing I'm going to be looking for is feedback from the trustees in terms of, let's pick a couple of areas that we do this in and see how it works. If there's a particular area that you're getting more concern on or less concern, or your constituents are, telling you that this area is a problem versus this area is a problem, they're all about the same. We can prorate it based on the volume of traffic. We can look at it based on, concerns, complaints filed with the village, appearance, whatever we want to rate that based off of. They're all relatively equal in terms of which one you want to put it at. I would suggest more main thoroughfares as opposed to maybe cul-de-sacs, or maybe we pick a cul-de-sac and a thoroughfare and see how they hold up. But just looking for some initial feedback for what roadways we feel are most important or applicable in this area. We can certainly give recommendations, but these are all the ones that fit into that category that this product would be applicable to. And we'll go from there.
I see there's a pretty big range from small to big on pricing. The smallest is about $448, while the biggest is to $18,000.
And those are based on the length and size of the roadway segment. So when you look at those roadway segments, that's based on the pavement rating, where every section of the roadway was given a unique individual rating that ties to the condition, the location, the pavement type, the deterioration of the pavement. So like the smaller ones might be just an intersection, whereas other segments might be a long segment with no other intersecting roadway. So we went from block to block to block when we broke everything out. And then we split it based on pavement types or years of construction or phases when the subdivisions came in to the village. So we would have a good record of what has this segment seen throughout the years? What has this segment seen throughout the years? So a single roadway may have 15 segments, and we may want to do all 15 segments of that particular roadway, but it's broken out into those individual components based on monitoring and pavement type. I'm done.
So the application, what are we looking at on the application? Are we talking, is there a dry time to this particular product? So if you have to shut the road down for 24, 48 hours?
It's more immediate. It'll break pretty quickly in terms of.
I'll stop you there for a second. Talking with the distributor of this product, typically what they will do is they will go in and do a half a block full width at a time, and they basically want that closed for a 24-hour period. So it is possible that you may have to walk 3 or 4 houses to get into your driveway. And this is actually, I believe, 2 applications during that time period. Then they'll go in and do the other half of the block, once again, to minimize the amount of distance someone has to walk. But they've also indicated that in larger projects, they have actually brought out golf carts to assist in moving people who need assistance from where they're parking to get to their house. So, it all depends on how we write the specs, so forth. I do know that they do require, in order to get this $3, typically to take care of the mobilization cost, to bring in the equipment and stuff, they're looking at usually about 15,000 square yards to make it in that $3 range. Otherwise, it's going to go up in price. Where in the same time, if you get something a little bit larger, it may come down slightly in the unit cost.
So essentially a minimum bill of $45,000.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
And we'd want to string them together and do, an area or, connecting roadways as opposed to let's do a cul-de-sac in here, let's do one over here, and, north, south, east, west, and spread it all over. So I think if we're going to look at this product seriously and do a valid test run, if you will, we pick a section that makes sense economically in terms of volume, get our best bang for the buck, and we pick a stretch of roadway or connecting roadways in an area that makes sense.
Is this the same product that I'm starting to see instead of the tar-filled crack? I'm seeing some areas in Springfield where they're using something that has aggregate that is a little bit thicker. Is this that particular type of product? I'm starting to see that in some patching areas and that kind of stuff. Is that?
The tar-filled crack is more the truck-applicated crack sealing, in which it blows aggregate out and basically caps the oil, the slurry with aggregate.
Are you talking about when you go on the interstate and you see that black stripe that run?
Yeah.
That's a similar product to this. When they put that product down on the interstate, right?
Yeah.
That's on the lane lines.
Yeah.
This is full width all the
way
through.
Right. I understand.
It's a similar type product,
right.
isn't it? Close.
Sort of. It's a waterproofing type product with an aggregate in it. So
for that joint.
Similar in that it's a road.
Yeah. One's a road, one's a joint.
It is not similar.
I think he's trying to nicely say that you're wrong.
Hey, yeah.
This may not be anything that I don't know, Terry. Did they? What's the condition of the road that permits this to be used, because you couldn't put this over a tar and chip road, right? I mean, that's still going to fall apart almost immediately, but.
No, actually you can, but I think, when I was talking to Jim on this, I think we want to first protect our HMA surfaces, our hot mix asphalt surfaces, and continue with our oil and chipping. And then once we eventually get through all this, then we can maybe take a look and say, okay, here's some areas of our oil and chip that maybe we need to put this type of treatment. But I think we're still a number of years away before we're.
Well, I think the heart of my question is more along the lines of, if we have a road that's, let's just say it's ranked at number 4, right, on the bad end, right? And we try to use this, is the manufacturer still going to support that, or do they have to approve the base structure before this can be laid down? If you follow my line of thinking, right?
For a trial run, we would work with the contractor, and the contractor would probably get the manufacturer involved with that on the get-go, in terms of, we would send them photos, we would send them pavement conditions, and here's what we're trying to do, and gain some sort of concurrence with them that this is a good application for this type of roadway or this condition of roadway. We're not just going to blanketly just go out and, oh, let's just try this here, and the base has failed, but maybe it'll hold it together. The roadways that we've rated based on the Payzer system involve roadways that are still in decent shape, but the surface is starting to ravel. We're seeing, minor cracking of the pavement where water's starting to get in there. But overall, the roadway rides decent. But there's starting to become some deterioration where you look at it and go, this probably isn't going to be a real good condition here in about 5 years. An example that I would give is Ironbridge Road or Gordon Drive, just south of where the county did their overlay project. Roadway rides fine. Starting to look a little bit rough. You're starting to see some cracking on the pavement. Now, with that high of an ADT, I'd probably lean more towards HMA overlay as opposed to this product. But for some of the residential areas, higher volume residential areas, I think this product lends itself much better for a cost perspective and the amount of traffic that it gets. Where we run into the problem is, it's tough to justify spending a quarter of your MFT money to pave one cul-de-sac that gets 10 cars a day. So we want to focus on the main roadways, but we can't neglect the ones that are still major thoroughfares that still have traffic and are deteriorating, because at some point that's going to continue. Something like Oak Brook, sections of Oak Brook that are beyond repair. We fixed one last year. We probably need to look at some other sections through there, but there's some other areas of roadway, say even like Ptarmigan. Once we go through a patching program, get everything fixed, then put this type of a product on there that would seal that up and preserve that pavement for a longer period of time. But yes, there's definitely roadways you do it to, and there's ones that you don't, both based on the amount of traffic on it, the functional classification of the roadway, how it's serviced, and then also the condition.
So the other question I would have is, so if you're at a 4, what would this product bring it up to?
You're probably looking at an 8. It's not perfect. 10 would be brand new paved facility. Right. Perfect base, perfect everything, but you're looking at an 8. Once that product went down, all the cracks are gone, smooth surface, no ruts. You visually inspect that, and this would be an 8. If you had no history of it, and that's kind of what the Payzer system does. You look at the pavement, you go, okay, here's what I see on the surface, which is generally a good indicator of what's going on below and what kind of problems you expect to have in the future. But yes, if you bring these 4s, 5s, 6s up to 8s, now we're keeping those walls up in the air and keeping them from dropping.
Are we saying like an 8's probably another 10 years, and it is a road that could last 10 years?
Yeah, the pavement brochure, they're saying, 10 to 15 years, depending on, what other things are going on with the pavement. But if it's on a decent base and, you can prevent that water infiltration, you're looking at, about a 10-year cycle on that.
And like Jim had mentioned earlier, you may have a 4 out there that may require some patching. So you may have to go in there and take care of those areas that need to be patched. Then you come in with this. to basically seal it in, give you a little bit better surface. Jim, offhand, do you know what the current price per square yard for an HMA overlay?
I do not.
Okay, so that's something you could possibly bring in January.
Should be in our bids from, for Park Street.
Yeah, basically you take a look at your milling costs.
I'll grab the bids that Illinois Valley Paving did, and we'll put
come up with a square yard.
I believe I do have, I don't know if the costs are on that one, but there is the different pavement rehabilitation types in there based on, like a 2.5-inch overlay, but I'm not sure if the costs are on that as well. But I do know that this product ended up lining up with the estimates that we were predicting for a slurry seal or some sort of a micro overlay associated with this type of a treatment, so it's consistent with those.
My only comment on this one, sorry to interrupt you, was just if we intend to test this out in a certain area, I feel like we should have an area that we're studying that isn't affected by this product as well too, in order to run them both parallel to see how good this actually is. If we just pick a section of town and do it, we may not know how it compares to if we hadn't done it. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but like if we had two roadways in similar conditions, we tested it on one and didn't test it on the other, then studied the impact of the product over time, you could then justify, right, you could then justify, was this worth $80,000 then? But if we just pick some roads and do it, then, it looks good. I just think.
So like similar traffic flow too.
Right. The roadway that you live on.
Sure, yeah.
This and someone else's.
No, obviously we can't do the whole town.
Sell out your neighbors, do.
No, I think
but to make it a control and a variable.
Right. I think you'd have to find two roadways that are worn equally and then have similar traffic patterns to justify it. Because otherwise it may take 7 years or 5 years to realize this was a bad idea.
Understand.
One of my concerns with that, though, is you're fixing one, letting the other one deteriorate and not fixing it.
Well, we've already decided we can't do them all.
You could have saved money. You save money by fixing it then.
Right, I understand.
Where's the money you can fix them all?
We can't repair all of the roads, but we're testing this new product. I just feel that the testing procedure should be that you could measure it. Is it working or isn't it?
And actually, this product, I think, has been around since the early 2000s. We've never used it as far as the village. And I realize there is a bias, going to the manufacturer's website, and they can show you the before, after time period. And they may be selecting the best items out there and not showing the worst.
Can they give us some references of towns that have it?
Absolutely.
Or you could actually go look at the town that's nearby?
And it could be we do a section of a roadway and do the north half of the roadway, and let's see what the south half does.
Yeah, my only thought here is just this is obviously a huge investment that we'd look to do. We'd want to make sure that it's worth continuing to do.
And one of the things too is using this product as opposed to spending additional money, 3, 4, 5 times the amount in terms of a mill and overlay type project. So, not saying even if it doesn't work, it still buys you time.
Sure.
Still advances the pavement and still provides that protection. Is that 5 years? Is it 8 years? Is it 10 years? 15 years? A lot of that's going to be variable depending upon the roadway and the conditions and how it's used. But it still provides the ability for the village to spread the dollars out further than it would be with just conventional mill and fill.
And that's why, I asked Jim if he could provide that as far as the unit cost. So, if it is $15 per square yard or whatever it turns out to be for the mill and fill, also if we go with that route, also we're doing a fifth of the roads. And I agree that we want to make sure this is proven for the village of Chatham. I don't think we want to wait too long because all of a sudden those 4s are going to become 3s and 2s. And
I absolutely
1s.
Understand that, and I understand how 8 can become a 4, and I appreciate that. It's just that if we're buying a discounted product, that this is only $3 compared to, like you said, 15, then we should at least expect to get 1/5 of the lifespan of a mill and fill. If the mill and fill is 20 years, then we better at least get 4 out of this. That's
how long do you get on a roadway when you do a complete mill and overlay on it?
Complete mill and overlay, you're probably in that 15 to 20 year range.
15, 20 years.
Right. So if the price of 15 is I know you're just shooting off the top of your head. If that's right, then clearly this is the way to go.
Yeah,
as long as, you know, it holds up to 8 to 10 years.
You're basing that number off of that the sub base is good.
Yes.
If our sub bases are like some of the places that we've found in town,
Oak Brook.
it's just black dirt.
Correct.
That's it. So you mill and fill it, all you've done is put a brand new Band-Aid over something that's still really in bad shape.
But why don't, as you're working through what the next MFT and road project is, why don't you try to, you know, isolate some areas where this makes sense, find a stretch where it can be put in, and, you know, you can kind of put the side by side, say, here's what we can do. If we go X route, we can do A, B, and C, or if we want to try this, we're able to do A, B, C, and D, you know, and put that together as the MFT program comes up.
On the ones that you're going to
Yes.
see what it looks like underneath.
Because that's
if you've
important.
got a terrible sub base, I don't want to put really either of those products on.
Right.
You just wait till the thing falls apart, or you just I don't even.
Because a lot of that's probably a decent problem here, isn't it?
Yeah.
With
There
the
are quite a few roadways that have poor subgrade conditions. We're finding that the more and more that we repair, the more and more it substantiates the reason why we're repairing them.
Right.
And it's a lot of the newer developments. A lot is tied to the lime stabilized subbase that deteriorates, is no longer present. Lime was mixed with black dirt, and there's nothing else underneath other than black dirt. You remove the pavement and pretty much bag it for Miracle-Gro. There's no chunks, there's no evidence that any kind of a stabilized base was there.
was underneath.
But we have since changed our pavement design.
We have since,
Yes.
we have since changed our pavement design. We also have since changed our inspection requirements in terms of, you know, those procedures, in terms of requiring proof rolls, requiring rock base, you know, requiring all of that to be in place. So it is looked at, it's documented that the sub base is good and can support a loaded truck without pavement, as opposed to let's just throw some dust on top of it. It forms a nice crust. It can barely get a paver over it, and let's seal it up and paint it black as quick as possible. Which is a lot of what happened.
Yeah.
Hopefully anything that has occurred from probably about 3 years or so ago when CM&T came on board. Further, I think those pavements are definitely going to last much longer, closer to the 20, compared to some of the pavements in some of the newer
Right off the bat, we
subdivisions.
eliminated the lime stabilization. Yeah. We don't allow that anymore. We require that the dirt has to pass a certain criteria for deflection, and then the rock goes over the top of it, and that has to pass a certain criteria for deflection, and then they either put 2 layers of asphalt or 1 layer of concrete over it.
So really what we're having is preparing a subgrade, we run a loaded truck over it, and it can't deflect more than this. Then we put 4 to 6 inches of rock on top of that, run another loaded truck over the top of it, and no deflection. And then you're putting pavement on top of that. So
should be good.
It should be good.
To Trustee Detmer's point about, you know, doing this as you have a control variable, are there studies with, you know, where they've actually studied this material elsewhere in, you know, in a study like this?
And a lot of the manufacturers produce those studies, so we're kind of a little bit at their mercy in terms of, oh yes, our product's the best. You know, look at how it's, you know, revitalized this town or this town or this town. So,
but there's not like a federal.
Not with these type of products. When they start, you know, I guess approaching state agencies, federal agencies associated with that, then, you know, you see more of those grand scale type test strips or, you know, independent studies associated with this. So that's why we look at this. If it appears to be a good product, we get good responses from, you know, some of the references that we contact. We try it. You know, if it's a fifth of the cost of repaving a roadway, we're out.
If it started in 2004, there's some 10 to 14-year-old roads out there that somebody's put it down. We should be able to find out where those are at.
Yep.
And at least have somebody take a look at them and give us a picture, to see or whether somebody's had to go back and repair those over time and stuff. So
if they're still in business, I mean, it's a good signal that their product is holding up well, and references are carrying forward. So,
and that's also the other thing is for this type of a product, in order for motor fuel tax funds to be expended on this type of a product, and there's other types of products out there also, a lot of those have to go through a testing process through IDOT for approval. If it doesn't get on the approved list, you can't use it, at least not with MFT funds.
Thank you.
That's the old business. I guess new business.
Now what have we got new?
Let's see. Glendale 4, final segment to the north on Grove is being paved. All the rehab pavement to the south has been completed. There's a couple more patches that they're going to hit off of Timmy in the spring, but that whole segment's open traffic, brand new pavement out in front of those houses. Ended up putting about a foot of rock out there on fabric to fix those conditions, because when they started digging it up, it was wet, black dirt. Couldn't get compaction on it, wouldn't hold trucks, wouldn't hold traffic. So replace that correctly and move forward with that project. So that's done. Paving the last section tomorrow to the north, and that'll complete out the pavement on that subdivision, where I expect the developer to come in for approval on that plat, and also a reduction of letter of credit, or establishment of letter of credit for that development. Tank painting, finishing up the painting this week. We are looking at Friday for the initial fill. And then we'll go through the disinfection process with that, coordinating with the village's subcontractors as opposed to set up the SCADA systems and tying everything back in and putting that back into service. That'll take place on Monday, so we're probably looking at Tuesday or Wednesday of everything being brought online officially, and then removal of the hydropneumatic tanks. Let's see.
A question about the water. Actually,
yes.
I know that it's going to take some time to refill the water tower. In that period, do we intend to shut off the CWLP water such that there's no potential contamination of the CWLP water and the SSWC water within the tank itself?
We are currently on South Sangamon water.
Right, but isn't the CWLP, isn't it open still to ensure that we have enough pressure within the system?
Once everything's filled, before we connect the tank back to the system, we'll bring the system pressures back down, close the interconnect valve on Route 4, so we don't have that interface anymore.
When they turn those big pumps on out at our pump house on our ground storage, the pressure is much higher than what Springfield's is.
Right.
So it will always push against that. So even as it's filling that up, the water coming from the South Sangamon will come in there and fill that tank, and not the water from Springfield. Now, could we turn that off? Probably could. The plan is to try to fill it as fast as we can at night while everybody's asleep and nobody's using water. Have the plant ramped up to be able to produce water for us at that rate, and then us be able to pump the stuff straight on through and get it full. The guys are projecting maybe 2 nights that by Monday it'd be full. So,
right, it's just when we were talking last night about this and how, there's a pocket where the water's deep, and how they, effectively eliminate.
I think we can, I think we'll get with Bill and run those numbers, but you're right. If there's any chance of that, we should shut that valve out there on Springfield.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
If it lowers pressures in the system by filling the tank due to too high of demand, and we're bringing water off Route 4, we don't want that.
Right, but they both could end up in the water tower if such conditions arose. We had a fire while we were doing it or whatever. So that's my only thought, was just, let's just shut that off just to ensure that that doesn't happen.
And once that water tower is full, we wouldn't need that valve open anyway.
Right.
And at that point, that's when all those tanks, are done. Yeah,
taken out. Yeah.
So it'll take a couple of days before we get through, do the testing, send off samples for the disinfection, make sure that everything in the tank is clean, no bacterial hits or anything else associated with that. There's a system of 2 tests that need to take place. The tower gets disinfected in 2 stages. First one is through the riser. The second one is through the bowl on the top. And then there's an additional amount of chlorine that basically gets put in there. It has to sit and cook, if you will, for a 6-hour period on a higher concentration. Then it gets diluted all the way rest of the full procedure. So we'll take 2 samples on 2 consecutive days, and if those both come back clear, then we're able to bring the system back online.
And that is similar to what we did to the ground storage.
Exact same procedure. The only thing is this one's a little bit more complicated just due to the
elevation,
pumps, the SCADA system, the interconnected CWLP, making sure that it all falls into place and there's not that co-mingling of water. And then let's see, Park Avenue, all the sidewalks were completed last week, so that'll conclude their work for the year. Next spring will be first on the list for the milling and paving activities associated with that project, but now we have pedestrian access up and down the roadways. So I think other than that,
I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. SSWC and water updates, so we just covered that.
I was just going to give you a little update. When the tornado went through and hit Taylorville, that wind did blow down one of the poles out in the well field. It caused the generator to kick on. We got a call from the plant letting us know that the generator kicked on. They went out there and checked it. They said one of the poles are down. Our guys had installed those poles because it's all along private property back there. Ameren is the supplier that brings it into, a point that it goes down to the well field and runs through all of the transformers and stuff that are out there. So I talked to Lee Bloom and said, I can send our crews out there. They've got all the equipment to be able to put that pole back up and get everything back up and going. I said, if you're willing to turn around and pay for their overtime and the use of our equipment and anything that goes on out there, and he said he was. So we made that agreement. We went out, and that within a couple hours, they had the new pole set and everything set back up. Then they got a hold of Ameren. Ameren switched the power from the generator back on, and we've been good since.
Only question I would have is, do we have an agreement with them? So, for work comp purposes.
We don't, and we probably need to put something like that together. We had a intergovernmental agreement when we did this and we did that.
Right.
But I think for stuff like that, especially on the electric end, even though I told them, I said, look, we're going to send you what our bill was for that. They said, if you want to go out and try to find somebody that will be on call in 24-hour notice to be able to come and set a pole for you and put all that stuff back, maybe Ameren will do it. I don't know if they go on private property, but,
right.
It's up to you to figure out those prices. If not, we'll charge you what it cost us to do that work.
All right. Go ahead.
So is the...
Oh, the other thing I wanted to fill you in on, but it's still on the South Sangamon, is all the equipment's in place for the chloramines. They're still waiting on the analyzers and the testing equipment to be coordinated with the SCADA. And that's supposed to happen sometime late this week, beginning of next week. Then they'll probably do a testing period on that. And then they'll be, I don't know all the procedures that they have to go through for that.
So if they got that in place in time,
it won't be that fast.
It won't be that fast.
It won't be, no.
Never mind.
So was there a degradation of the ability of the plant to produce water during that generator, during the time the generator was running? So, was the reduction, could the plant supply our water during that reduction of power?
They did. They did supply our water. We were still hooked to Springfield, but we didn't have to take water from Springfield on that.
We didn't have a pressure drop during that time that would have caused the CWLP to flow in.
I don't think there was, but I'm not sure.
Why would we?
We
Why
just
were we-
reacted to it because they had called us and told us that they had a problem out there and they lost a pole.
So we turned the CWLP on at that point?
The CWLP connection has been turned on ever since
Well,
we
that's right.
took the
Because of-
above-ground tank out of,
Right.
because that acts as our
On that side, the pressure.
It's our backup for pressure.
Yeah.
If for some reason fire department open up hydrants or one of those portable things go down, we don't want the pressure to drop and cause a boil order.
Right.
This way, this thing stays there, but as long as the pressure on this side of the main is
not
balanced,
like
where it's higher than on this side, then Springfield water doesn't come in through that line.
How much
But if
higher
there
are
is a
we running?
fire-
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. If there's a fire, and it kind of, to your question, it would then pretty much draw that water from COP.
It would get pushed in.
It would get pushed in.
And it has.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done that in the past, and we've used that over the summer at times. You know,
Yeah.
when the plant can't produce enough water for us, we've used that. That's why we know that it works. We've okayed it with the EPA to be able to do that in emergency situations, and they signed off on this one, and it's worked great. It's worked great.
What's the pressure
And we appreciate.
differential?
I think you remember. I think we're at 60 or 55 with what we have set with the pumps out there at the pump station, and I think Springfield's is like 45, so that keeps it in balance. It doesn't have to be a whole lot to be able to keep that in balance.
Right.
They have a check valve on theirs.
Yeah.
So we're pushing up against their check valve. So until our pressure drops below that 45, it won't come through.
And
We're not pushing water into their system.
And they go out and read that thing on a regular basis, and then they send us a copy of the spreadsheet every day, like, 1,000 gallons went through. Well, that's not much, That's $9 worth of water, yeah.
Okay, next, village manager update.
You asked me last night to give you some stats for the water and electric testing that we've sent off-site. I checked with Shane in the electric and Dustin in the water department, and we have sent no meters off-site in the last 12 months. So it just doesn't happen very often.
Okay.
The only reason that we had talked about this was people were, when we had the mismatched meter, everybody wanted their meter sent off or please come out and check our meter. We did all that with the water. We didn't tell anybody, no, we're not coming out and checking it. Unless we had in the database that we've just changed that meter out a month ago, So we've wanted to be able to make sure that we do all this stuff right, but we don't want to lose money if we have to send it off. So Shane was looking at it and he says, you know what, these numbers need to be updated. So we put the ordinance together.
And just to double say this again, those are the prices that are passed along to us from those.
That's how much they charge us. We turn around, take the thing off, and then send it to them.
Except we are going to charge on-site for electric? Wasn't that?
Yes, that's a load test. So that takes probably an hour for our guy to go out there and hook that thing up and put a load on it to see what happens. The water one, it's relatively quick. You go out and you hang a device over the copper line and it can tell you whether water is going through it or not. Like I said, a water meter can't read fast. We had a mismatch one, and that was because of the formula with the two talking together. But a meter, it just spins. It's got fins on it, and if the water's coming along and pushing the fins in a certain direction, as long as that water keeps going, that's how fast that thing spins. As it wears out, it gets dirt and stuff in it, and it makes it harder for that fin to spin around. So actually, you would get undercharged. So that's why we try to keep all those things up to date.
Okay.
And that will be on the agenda for next meeting, if that's all right with you guys.
26th.
The 26th.
Not Christmas Day.
May want to hang on to that one for a while. Rather than put it up on that 26th one. That's the one that
I would prefer
your
that
preference.
really
Your
quick.
preference is consent items.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would, if we could push
We can
that
move
off.
it to January.
Yeah, move
There's
it to
no
January.
pressure on it. We just had it sitting out there since October, I think.
Yeah.
That would consider.
Next, ADA Transition Plan Committee update.
Basically, there was no meeting. We did not have a quorum last month. I was out of state on business, so we did not have a quorum. So there was no meeting, but there should be a meeting this coming Tuesday.
The one thing I will ask on that is we need to get that vacant spot filled so we're not stuck in this situation. If one person's missing, we're kind of hosed. So
Bring some recommendations. Happy to fill it up. That's the note I just put down. Terry needs another member.
So if anybody wants to be on the ADA Transition Committee.
yeah, if anybody's interested in the ADA committee, just let us know.
One thing I forgot to tell you was we will be adding another new employee in the water department. We had that in the budget to add another water person. We decided to hold off. That person, he interviewed when we hired the last water person, when Dustin moved up and then JD moved up. This person tested second. We knew we were going to hire somebody later in the year. This kid worked for us all summer, so he continued working through the winter. He can work up to, I think, 1,000 hours. So he was good till towards the end of December. I think next week he has to stop, but we're going to hire him, and he'll be our second Tier 2 employee, and he'll start in the water department January 2nd.
Thank you. Next is the Utility Oversight Committee discussion. So I can update everybody what went on. So the number one thing we had on the agenda was the ordinance amending the meter testing, what Pat just updated us on, and that's exactly what he presented us last night. It looks as though that they're all, from what I could tell from last night, they're all pass-through costs. So these are what, when we do send it off, which apparently we've sent none off, when we do send it off, that's what we're charged. And it did include, Pat, you guys did include some, it's not exactly what we're charged. There's some administrative fee for us to take it off and put it back on. Was that right? When you figured it out?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The next one we had was a utility late fee discussion. And, you know, that discussion was put on by Trustee Mann, and it was really about just the 10% charge that citizens are seeing when they're late on their utility bills. And the consensus of that group was to look at reducing it. And that's what the consensus was to bring forward to the board. There was a number of, the thing that Trustee Mann brought forward was he'd like to see it at 5% instead of the 10. The discussion also entailed, you know, our utilities are high. So our 10% of our utility bill is way more than a 10% of a, you know, a lower utility place. The other thing that Trustee Scherschel brought into the conversation was you do a minimum and a max, and there can be, you know, you can have other things you look at besides just 5% as well. So that it's something that we probably should discuss as a whole of what we would like to see, if we would like to see that reduced. I was of the opinion that 5% sounded reasonable to me. I would be for that. Does anybody else have any input?
Well, I do. What concerns me about that, I wasn't here to hear the whole discussion, but because I was in attendance last night also, but what concerns me about that, from my understanding, the late fee is kind of put aside as a cushion. So if we ever need like a rate stabilization or need a utility project or something like that, it will reduce that cushion. And then by reducing that cushion could possibly mean that we have to turn back to the board and say, well, we got to raise the rates again because that cushion there that, you know, is gone. So, and you know, what I'm concerned about too is the majority of the people pay their bills on time. So by reducing that, you're hurting those people, in my opinion, that pay on time, because that would make a rate increase more likely than not by cutting that rate fee or late fee in half.
Well, I can tell you from the last 12 months, we brought in $170,000 in late fees. Now, we're basically putting those late fees on people that are already having a trouble issue. They're already having issues with their bills. So we all know that we have a utility cost problem. Our water is high. There's no argument about that. We all recognize that fact. So when you say, if we're going to keep this at a 10%, we're saying, well, our rates are already high, and the ones that are struggling the most are going to pay the most of that cushion. So we're building that cushion on the backs of our citizens that are struggling. So that's where this needs to change.
So the question I ask, and I'll kind of back up to when we initially, changed the rate structure and how everything was calculated. Matt's correct that at that point it was directed, say, rather than assume a dollar figure for late fees in a year and make that part of your overall rate discussion, set that off to the side and don't use that in your calculation at all. So that's how we got to the per thousand rate that we have right now, and move that off to the side. That was the capital building portion of the fund, and it varies from year to year. I did pass out. I went and a few minutes over lunch hour. Mm-hmm. Those are the surrounding communities that I could find outside of Springfield. And anytime we talk rate structure, CWLP is a different monster than what most of us deal with. Riverton, Auburn, Rochester, Jerome, Williamsville, Athens, Petersburg, those I found within about 10 minutes right on their code sections. Everybody's at a 10% charge. It's not the rate per se, it's does reducing it bring your bill current? Does that change anything? So if you suddenly say, okay, well now, it's only a 5% charge, is that going to increase collections on utility bills? Is that going to bring people current? Or is that $10 or $15 difference is not what's doing it? If you're late, there's other reasons, and whatever those reasons may be, the difference between, $10, $15, or $20 isn't the make or break point on that whole discussion. But what it does bring into play is right now we have limited avenues of recourse when somebody doesn't pay a utility bill. There's limited circumstances under which a utility can be shut off, and through the winter, they become even more limited on it. So we're not rushing out to turn people off. It's not like your cable bill. If you don't pay the cable bill, it's off tomorrow, and it's gone. Same thing with the cell phone or any of the other services that there is. So part of that is putting the utility bills and the villages bill back as a priority on which bills need to be paid for people. And I think as a board and as a village, we have an obligation to make that a priority bill to be paid, because every bill that goes unpaid is paid by the rest of the town. There's no corporate profit that's sitting around on the thing. There's no shareholder value that's going up or down on any of the thing. Every unpaid bill is paid by somebody in this village. So unless a reduction can show that it's going to increase the amount of payments, and I tend to think it's the opposite, because you move it on, a lower rate charge, it's more expensive to not pay this bill versus this bill. When those decisions come to be made, we've got an obligation to make the village be the bill that needs to be paid, and we owe that to everybody else that's around it that's feeding in that system. The only source of revenue for the entire thing is people that live and use our service here. So there's the hesitation on doing it and lowering the priority of that bill. We have no other, legitimate quick recourses to do it. I don't think you'll see an increase in collection on it. And, and to Matt's point, if you change the funding equation on the utility bills and, and eliminate $90,000 worth of revenue that's used to support the fund, that 90's got to be made up somewhere else. And so what you do is, you shift it and say, we're not going to take it from here, from those that aren't paying on time, we're going to take it from everybody else. Is that the shift you want to see? Because it's got to come from somewhere. You know, the capital has to come from somewhere. The expense to operate the system has to come from somewhere.
So I got a couple questions. So one, and I know we didn't ask this last night, we brought in 170, and what was our outstanding balance? And
what was still owed?
What was still owed?
What was not paid?
Sherry, that's like 1.5% to 2% of the total revenue of the utility systems. You can see it in the financial statements.
What we write
it's
off?
in that range. No, the late fee is a portion of total revenue.
Well, my question is, what was the outstanding balance from the customers who hadn't paid? And that.
Yeah, what do we write off?
Yeah.
Do we know that?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I know that's a.
Yeah, and it's an extensive process even to get to the point where it gets written off, because we utilize the comptroller's offset system. You know, we do. You know, there's a substantial amount of work that goes into trying to collect a past due bill. You know, and on that time, it's taking staff time. It's taking the employees that work in the utility office. They're trying to hunt this down, trying to get these collections. So there's definitely a collection cost associated with that. And if you're talking, you know, a $200 bill, you know, you're late, that's a $20 charge. And a lot of times they're going to spend far more time trying to collect that bill than that $20 is ever going to recover for them. There's the staff time, there's pure, and I believe that there's some type of fee associated with the offset system, or, you know, similar to like any collection agency you would lose if you turn them over to a debt collector. You know, half of what they collect goes away. So there's certainly costs associated with trying to collect that, and I don't want to be, and I don't think the village has any right or obligation to become the financing arm for anybody. You know, we're not the bank. We're not the credit card companies. That's not what we do. You know, we provide the service. We need to get it paid.
And that 10% isn't carried over from month to month. So say, for instance, if you're late in May and you get a 10% charge, you get a one-time 10% charge.
Okay. Of your May bill.
And then when June rolls around, if you're late on that one, you get a 10% charge on just your June bill. It's not your total bill.
It's not compounding on the total bill.
No.
It's one and done, essentially, is what it is.
Because that was going to be another question then is, you know, I guess what's someone's highest outstanding?
Yeah, what has been the highest late fee we've seen? You know?
Yeah, I know these are new questions.
Because I know some villages cap them.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so much depends on, you know, what did you use? If it's, right. You know, if
the only
take an extreme example. If you used, you know, you got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house versus the school.
Right.
Substantially different.
The only thing I've seen is, you know, you see people put their bills out there, and for a same size house somewhere it's 800, and for the same size house somewhere else it's 400. So 10% of the 800 is way more than 10% of the 400. And with our utilities being so high, but I also get that we can't, it's tough to transfer cost.
Trustee Mann, I think you said last night there were some other villages that had lower late fee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite a few of them actually. Well, I mean, you know, you look at the list that you pulled up. This is a great example. Athens, right? This is where my parents live. Their water bill's $20 a month. So 10% of $20 is a heck of a lot different than 10% of $200. So I still go back to the fact that no matter how you spin it, we're still funding this on the backs of the citizens of Chatham that are least able to afford it. So, I mean, if we're going to stick with the 10%, then let's figure out a better way to fund that. If that means we increase our rate by a 0.01%, then I'd prefer us do that and lower this rate. Because no matter how you spin it, at the end of the day, the ones that are paying for this are the ones that can least afford it. End of the day, period. That's the truth.
Pat, quick question, Pat. Over at the utility office, do they have information as far as some of the various assistant programs? I think one's called the circuit breaker program. I think there's some others where they come in and say, hey, I'm having problems making ends meet, you know, so forth. Is there something we can pass on to them?
Girls do that. They pass all those on. And some of the local churches used to assist. They don't do that anymore. They said not to give their names out anymore at the office because their funds have run out.
Townships have general assistance funds.
Yeah. But most of the time, those are assistance with electric bills.
Right.
And a couple more things, our water price is high. We can take a vote in 2 weeks at our next meeting to lower it, but we're going to have to find a way to pay for that water. So we can get it down as low as you want, trustee Mann, but, that's, the fact is, our water's high because that cost is passed down to us. And the other thing.
What's that got to do with what I'm saying?
Because you just said our water was high, and that's why, $2 is a lot cheaper than $20. If our water costs $20, we can do a $2 fee. Well, we can't do that. Our water's not $2.
No, the only thing that I'm proposing is a decrease in the rate on the late fee.
Yeah, and that's what
that would be a
I'm arguing
decrease from
against,
10%
how is
to
it
5%.
Fair for the majority of the people to pay their bills on time? How is it fair for them to have to pay on those that don't, and make sure we don't have issues down the road? I don't think it is fair.
In water and electric, we do have surplus, right? I know we do electric. Right.
It's not. I mean, what you're looking for is, as we described in 3 to 4 months of operating, the structure that we came out when we, moved the variable cost closer to what we're being charged on a per thousand basis. The penalties, late fees, any ancillary charge on that, what those start to be earmarked for is a rate stabilization fund. So had we been, 10 years down the road farther and went to do the painting projects, that rate stabilization fund would have been built to do those more capital intensive programs without having to turn around and say, we need to do this, here's the rate increase. So the concept behind having the rate stabilization in there is to, if you have a significant collapse on a main and you've got, a capital intensive project that happens, have the funds available on hand so you don't have to go past a rate increase prior to the point that you can fix that problem and build that buffer in there. So that's where that's going. And the entire structure of utility bills are set now, and that's the funding mechanism that's doing it. And if you want to change one part of that equation, I'm saying you got to change the whole equation, or you start taking that away.
Les, I just told you that we were going to hire another water employee.
Right.
It starts. Well, that's $90,000. That covers the salary, insurance, everything.
But the other question would be is the rate stabilization fund, what percentage of the late fees is the rate stabilization fund?
100%, isn't it?
100%.
Right, but don't we have a cushion besides the rate stabilization fund?
It's all built, once you see it to the final, it's one number.
Right.
It's all in there.
But it's not just
kind of stuff is
built of late fees.
No, some of it is off of the operation for the same reason, because you still have the repair and maintenance, you still have the capital. You're not going to build an entire capital replacement plan on,
late fees,
2% of your revenue. That's not going to happen. So all those things are in there. This is a portion.
But do we know how much that portion is of it? So, I mean, you'd be taking away,
What is in the rate stabilization account right now? There's about $342,000 in electric and $228,000 in water.
Yeah, so they don't grow it massive.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's been 4 years.
So you'd be taking $90,000 or $85,000 out of that total. I'm just curious of the percentage it makes up.
That's only one item.
What's half?
Right.
It's going to be half on but it's such and what we saw, one of the things we were out to try to solve for when we were doing the rate structure is how do you not rely on variable type of revenue?
Right.
And that's one of the big variables. So 1 year may be high, the next year maybe not. So much of it, can depend on what's employment rates, what are, all these things come and go, as years. So some years it could be 20, some years it could be 200.
Right.
It's a big variable. So it's try how to remove that from the rate structure so that we weren't running into the, deficit 1 year, surplus 1 year, deficit 1 year, and smooth the curve on what increases have to be versus trying to factor in that, every single year.
Well, with that rate structure, that's taken into account with the debt allocation. That was structured that way because I was asked over the weekend a few times about, is our debt allocation, is it going to be so it's going up next year? So will we have ballooning payments?
For SSWC?
That's not us.
That's SSWC has those.
That's
not us.
That's on the Water Commission. So,
but I mean, will that be passed along to us?
They will set their rate.
Yeah.
Their entire operation is variable. That's 100%. Their entire, revenue stream is variable. It's the only way they're going to get money. Ours is set, particularly with the water fund, that we know what our fixed cost is on a monthly basis. That covers employees and the operation.
Right.
Keep that there. That's the set amount that everybody pays. That keeps.
A year or two ago, we moved the grace period and gave 5 days after the due date. A lot of people pay in that 5-day period. They're not seeing any fees. I think if you're looking for kindness from the board, essentially you've done that by allowing people 5 extra days because, hey, I forgot, you still got an extra week to be able to pay your bill.
And then, Pat, they get one
freebie
in a 12-month period, right? So if you're not charged a late fee, for if you miss 1 month.
I think we need to leave it where it's at. I really do.
And I guess the other question, and it's definitely a personal choice, I know one of the things that we did quite some time ago, we went to the monthly budget billing. That way we knew what our bills were going to be. Yes, some months we probably paid more than what we took in, but other months we weren't seeing a large increase. So, I'm just curious how many of these people who are having issues, is it more during a certain time, a period? Are they on a budget plan versus paying, actual usage month to month? I guess that would be one of the questions I would ask. But, a little bit of tidbit. Way back when I read an article on Blockbuster Video, and their annual profit for this one particular year was $1.3 billion. At the same time, their late fees also equaled $1.3 billion. So, I don't believe the village should be making a profit, and it does not sound like we are making a profit off these late fees. In fact, it sounds like we're probably actually losing what it's actually costing.
The cost, I mean, you can figure the cost of collection is a portion of the thing. Late fees are 1.5 to 2% of the total revenue on the utilities for the entire, and that includes all the permitting and everything. So you're a very small percent of the entire thing.
So that's of our total. It's 1.5 of our total.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Sherry, Lynn's time goes to in collections part? 80% of her time, maybe? 70?
The majority of her role in the utility office is.
So we have one employee that she spends almost all of her time on collections.
Going after it. Any further discussion? You want?
No. My argument still stays the same.
Okay. Next is municipal garbage franchise and contracting discussion. And so really last night was kind of just a put it out there to say what we're actually talking about. There was a lot of misinformation being bandied around on the internet. And so the discussion is just simply that, a discussion. And we conveyed it last night that none of the trustees that were sitting up there neither support or are against it. We want to have the discussion. We want to see what this can produce. So we talked about the process. The one question that was for you, Jeff, is if we were to do an RFP, at what point could it become public? So is it, if we do an RFP, like, is it prior to us issuing the RFP? I know it's public once the RFP is issued, but could the citizens be involved in drafting, in helping draft that, was their question. How early can citizens be involved in that process? It's generally an RFP question.
Yeah, I think that's really up to the board, and you could do this a number of different ways. I mean, sometimes you'll actually have the board bring an RFP, and this might be one at such a high level that you put this on an agenda to approve the issuance of the RFP. Have it out there for 48 hours. The citizens can review it.
Could we even have an agenda and then have a public meeting where we all attend, and it can be more of an open discussion? Could we do that?
Completely up to the board.
Okay, so that could happen.
Oh, absolutely. You could. I think Pat's been kind of working on a draft document. You guys could get a draft document together. Put it on a future committee of the whole and ask. If you guys wanted to have a special little public hearing, or you wanted to just make it an agenda item where you're going to let people come and speak back and forth and have a good discussion, completely up to your discretion as how you want to handle that.
Thank you. So that goes to what's really brought this about for me. There's two things that's brought it about: is does the village want to stay and that's what people mainly heard from the first meeting. Does the village want to stay in the leaf and limb pickup business? The second part is last night we spoke that when a lot of us ran, second most important thing to people is infrastructure. And you're seeing a lot of these municipalities go to, and again, I'm not supporting this. Everybody says that I'm driving this. I'm not. I'm the chair. That's why I'm talking about it. The chair has to talk about it. If it was Mr. Scherschel, he would talk about it. Or Mr. Mann. So a lot of these municipalities are going to franchise agreements, and you can mold these agreements into whatever the village wants. You can have it be one hauler. You can have it be 3 haulers in 3 zones. You can have it be 2 haulers in 4 zones. Whatever you can. There's different options that cities look at. And typically what has happened, and this is what we talked about last night, typically what has happened when you do this process, people's costs go down. And usually they go down, some significantly, some not, others not. It'll go down a little bit because they already have a waste hauler that is really low. But you'll see the costs go down and the services go up. So the one that we looked at, the one I've looked at, it had to where you got your trash, you got your recycling, you got 2 big item pickups during the year, you got your leaves, and you got your branches. That was included in their price. I've seen another one that you paid a fee. This service adds $1 to it. This service adds, you can only get what you want. But the reason for even looking at this is, as we looked at tonight, I mean, this figure just to repair 4s is $28 million.
No, that's for
all of it.
For all of it.
All streets.
To do this product.
No, that's all streets fixed.
It's all streets.
Okay.
Making whatever type of fixes depending on what the rating is. That's where the 28 million came.
Get them up to about 8.
Okay. So we have this problem here of our infrastructure. And so right now we have 4 that are registered in the city. Is that correct? In the village?
I know of
3?
3 that do residential.
Okay.
But I think there's a 4th that covers some of the commercial accounts.
That's ours, Pat?
I think it is.
So if you have 3 that are in the village, you've got the 3 garbage trucks and you've got the 3 recycling trucks going up and down our roads, who, while I have the utmost confidence in CMT, the roads they're building, the base under our existing roads is terrible. Oak Brook failed in a fairly short time. Manor Hill failed in even a shorter time on the hill. because the underneath of these roads is just bad. Is this the only solution? I don't think so. I think this board is going to have a lot of serious discussions about other solutions. You know, whether you have trucking routes, there's all kinds of things that we can discuss. But we have to look at everything, is what we were talking about last night. You know, Mr. Packelhofer's on the board. He's against it, but he's for having the discussion. I don't know where Mr. Mann's at. I'm not for or against it. I don't know that anybody is. But we need to see, and I think once we see an RFP that Pat's trying to put together, I think once we see that, then we'll have a better idea of what this will look like. It's not about having a monopoly. It's not about having, you know, an open market. It's about this infrastructure. And, you know, I've had discussions with people. We don't truly have an open market right now because you have to register with us to come into the city. It is what it is. But we may or may not do this, but we at least have to have the discussion. We didn't feel, you know, and we didn't feel these discussions happened as much as they should with previous boards because we don't know that they didn't. They may have behind the scenes, but it just didn't happen publicly. One of the reasons we created this committee, and then the one reason that this was put on the utility committee agenda is because most cities that do the trash, it's held in their utility office. And that's how it goes. And we wanted, there's more of a back and forth, as Bonnie can attest to, in that meeting. And we wanted the citizens to have input and then bring it back to you. And so the citizens that were there last night were relieved that it wasn't about this and that, and they didn't mind having the discussion. The one lady actually thanked us after just having the discussion. We also told the citizens nothing will come of any substance from that before it sees this full board. So if we do an RFP, it's coming at the committee of the whole before it ever goes down to there. I know Mr. Detmers was there, and you can attest to the tone. It wasn't bad. It was just a discussion, and that's all this is, and that's all it was at the utility committee. So what we came forward with was really just looking to see what an RFP would look like. We were okay with what an RFP would look like coming from Pat to the board.
I think a lot of times in the past that the reason that this was never approached is because it's a hot button topic. Mm-hmm. It's controversial. People like their choices, but it doesn't hurt to go through the process to take a look at it.
Yeah, so I'll summarize what Brett's saying. It's a request for information. It's a conversation to be had on one potential solution. And the only way you can actually get beyond the I feel like it wouldn't be beneficial or I feel like it would be beneficial is to ask the question. That's what they're doing right now. Right. It's going to go out, it's going to ask the question, you're going to come back. You may get something and look at it and say, why didn't we do this 10 years ago? Or you may get something and look at it and say, there's no way we would ever do something like that.
Absolutely.
Somewhere in between is going to be the answer. But until you ask the question, you guys can't make a good decision. You can't make a good recommendation. So that's where we are. I think January committee probably.
I can get probably all of you guys a copy of what I've got in draft form for you to take a look at initially. If it looks like I've got all the bases covered on it, then we could turn around and bring it to a committee and put it out there.
I think have you pulled from sample ones from other municipalities that do it?
Yeah. And then I've looked at what we currently do and how we do things and how the services are offered around here to try to address all of the needs as it goes through.
And for the record, I like my carrier, and I would hate to see them go away. Like I told Paul, if we went to this districts, I would hope I would get Lake Area and he would get somebody else because he loves Lake Area. But that's... we all like our carriers, but if it could save us potential of, put years back on these roads, it's worth looking at. And that's all it is, it's looking at it.
I want to underscore. It does a couple other things. Right now, our street department is the one that is picking up branches and leaves.
Absolutely.
And it is going to impact the decision on how do we staff appropriately, because it doesn't make sense to me to have guys that know how to pour concrete, fix a road, picking up branches at the rate, being paid at the rate of somebody that knows how to do these things and should be doing it. So and that's kind of the other that's behind it is, look, if we're going to continue doing this, let's get structured right to do that with the right kind of labor and get our street guys and the right equipment. Get our guys focused on what they're best at and get them fixing the roads and do all these things. So there's a lot of possibilities with it, but they can't be asked to make a decision without seeing the information, and that's what we're going to get you is the information.
Yeah, and so then you can redeploy them to the parks, and they're doing maintenance at the parks. But I just wanted to underscore a couple things because I appreciated the discussion Chairman Gerger led last night, because we had good discussion from the citizens who attended as well, because I think there's, as the one citizen said, there's been hysteria about this online, and that's part of the reason to have a meeting like that is because I think that some irresponsible people were trying to say what was going on without having all the information, and came last night and actually came prepared to say, no, don't do this, and said, oh, no, I appreciate the discussion. I'm open to hearing. Now, I don't know because I don't know the proposals yet, but that's the whole point. As you said, when I ran, I said all options are on the table, and that's what people want. They want to hear the discussion, what we're doing. And I have to say, without knowing the proposals, what Jim Michael said in his report tonight, that trucks can't even go along some of these other roads because of the gradient, only underscores the need for this discussion. And with appreciation to the work Trustee Fountain has done with CMT to rate these roads so we have, an actual list that they're rated. I mean, we're not doing this willy-nilly. This is strategic. This was not done before, but it's strategic, it's professional, it's what we should be doing, it's responsible. So,
and I don't want to, like President Kimsey said, is, Pat's got real concerns of what we do now. And, it may require other employees or more equipment. And so that's, a consideration we have to look at too, is whether we want to keep picking up branches and leaves. But that will be part of what we'll look at in these RFPs. It's really just doing due diligence. And I would hope people would be up in a roar if we weren't doing due diligence.
There are a lot of people in this town that they have one garbage can, no leaf bags, no branches, and they're paying for services that they never get to take advantage of. By looking at this, you'll see what those costs are, and people will be able to pick and choose. Or the board can decide, you know what, let's go down this route. Everybody can pick and choose what services they want. And then there'll be a list of people there and how much it's going to cost you for those services. So you could pay for as little as one garbage can a month and nothing else. You don't want to recycle, you don't want to do anything else, you could go that route. Or you could have
none of that without
an
RFP
until we get that. Yeah.
So Pat, that kind of leads me to another question I have. So if we were to do nothing, if we were to do nothing, what do we need to do on the village's side to maintain what we're doing now? Because we all agree, I think we all agree that what we're doing now is inefficient at best.
That's the backside of this.
What do we, what would we be looking at if we choose to do nothing? What would still be the cost? Because we're talking possibly about needing additional manpower, refocusing some manpower, new equipment. So what would our cost be to do nothing?
Due to the leaf bag pickup and the branch pickup, we pick up the second or the first full week of every month. That's 12 weeks out of the year we pick up branches. And when we have any kind of a storm, that 1 week usually turns into a week and a half to 2. So now you're talking 14 weeks out of the year. We do nothing but go around and pick up branches. Then twice a year, we pick up leaf bags for at least a month. A lot of times that gets extended a week or two, depending on when things fall, especially in the fall. Usually in the spring, we can set it for a month and people get all their stuff out because they've cleaned up over the winter. But if you turn around and figure that's a half a year's worth of 5 guys' time or 5 employees' time that they're not fixing roads, that they're not repairing sidewalks. They have to demobilize their truck to go do concrete repairs and then set it up so that they have an open bed so they can throw branches in it and leaf bags. It's not efficient. If we decided to stay in that business, I would look to buy a grappling truck that'd be able to grab all those branches and put them on the back of the truck. I would look to buy a garbage truck so that the guys, as they're going around picking up the leaf bags, would pick up, throw it in the back of the garbage truck. It would compress it, and then when that truck's full, we drive it straight to the dump and dump it there instead of taking it back and handling it for the third time where we dump it off the truck, and then we have a big semi come in, scoop those up, load them into that truck, and then they take it to the dump. It's just not efficient. So if we're going to keep doing the same things that we do now, I'm going to turn around and set our budget accordingly to be able to take care of that. If we decide to get out of those businesses, we will be setting up our budget completely different. My recommendation would be to do away with the $2 green fee. But, you know, let's get all that stuff in, take a look at it, have good open discussion, and figure out what we get.
Yep.
There's so many options that you really can't get pigeonholed into one or another.
Right. So if you could get that before the next committee of the whole out to us.
Yeah, I'll probably have it to you before the next.
And then we can all have a discussion at that committee of the whole of
yeah, that would be the time.
what the final product
working through
should look
that.
like. And then we can set a public meeting after that, after we set that final product.
Yeah.
And kind of get input from citizens and what they
And then tweak it.
tweak
as
it.
need be.
Yeah, if they have input we want to change, we'll have to move it to the next board. That's what I told everybody last night too. That was the other thing that was conveyed. This is not going to be a short process.
No.
Of looking at this. It's going to be a very long process.
We're not voting on this tonight?
No. No.
Guess who you think is going to have what level of service at what cost, and just go ahead. Is that a motion?
Okay, any other discussion? All right, public comments on village business? One?
Quick thing.
Sure.
When we talked about reducing the late fees, I pay my bill on time, but I know a lot of people that have problems with it. I understand what you're saying as far as reducing the 10%. Totally makes sense. You mentioned giving 5 days, and more people seem to be paying their bills with that extra 5 days. Why not consider giving them a 10-day? The 5 days we're already doing. It's just a suggestion. Don't give me dirty looks over there.
No,
but
I think
10 days.
you're-
You know what I'm saying?
What I'm saying is that if somebody needed to pay their utility bill, okay, and maybe they were running short that week, those extra 5 days allows that person to come up with the cash to be able to pay their utility bill without paying a penalty. See what I'm saying?
I do.
So the penalty is waived the first 5 days after.
So if the bill's due on the 15th and they don't pay it until the 20th, there is not a late
There is no late
Okay.
fee.
But standard-wise, when we get our bill, how many days do we have to pay that bill? 5?
15. Usually you get them towards the beginning of the month and they're due on the 15th. Yeah, you usually have your bill by the 1st and it's due by the 15th.
Suggestion because of the way people's pays run. And I mean, people on fixed incomes, you get paid on this, and then you've got people getting paid twice a month. Just something thrown out there so the citizens don't think it's a closed door, just to consider. And the only other question I have, and I'll give you a couple of notes for you guys to look at, is was there a fire at SSWC at any time the first part of December that you know of? Any kind of small fire there?
I know of.
Not that you know of. You want to check into that for me?
Yeah, we can look into that. Yep.
Because I'm still thinking that those poles that were replaced, in most cases with Ameren or any other company, there's a right-of-way there. If that's their electric wires running through that lot, that is a right. Oh, quit shaking your head.
It's private poles on private property. It is not an Ameren line.
Ameren Electric runs on those poles.
It runs down it, yeah. It's just like
Okay.
the village electric. We buy electricity from Springfield to power our substation out there.
To me, most of the time, those electric companies are going to have their own poles.
They do.
They're going to maintain their poles.
They do.
You just said that those were private poles.
They are. They're on private property.
But if the poles belong to SSWC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Bonnie, what would the fire have to do with?
I'm curious on whether they kicked in generators out there and that pole that went there.
Uh-huh.
From what I'm understanding, when I made a trip out there the other day,
Uh-huh.
there was a small fire.
But it wasn't in the plant. There was a fire on the pole. The wire bumped up against the pole and burned it, and then when the wind blew, it broke it in half.
Well, that's what I was
Pat said
That
already
isn't
that
what
the
you
generator's
said. You
turned
said,
on.
was there a fire at the plant? There was a fire on a pole in the well field.
Okay.
Is that the same thing?
So yes, there was a fire on the pole. We got your answer.
Fire on the pole. Not in the hole, fire on the pole.
Okay, any more public comments? Schedule of meetings, see village board schedule of meetings for all the other scheduled meetings. Next committee of the whole is 6:15, January 8th. And do we have any reason for a closed session? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second.
Trustee Churchill, by Trustee Mao. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Here, look, if I use Jim's super long paper, I can make it look like we're bound. Fancy.